Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to America once again. We're going to go to Grand Rapids in Michigan, which many of you might happen to know is home to Founders Brewing Company. Probably one of the better known American craft breweries these days, and definitely one of the ones that does export their beers a little bit more to Europe and things like that. But for this one we're going to have a taste of the reDANKulous, which is an Imperial Red IPA. It comes in at 9.5% and it should be a bit of a beast. It's rated 99 overall on Rate Beer and at 99 within the style, so it should be a really good beer, and I hope you guys enjoy the review of it. This I think is my 7th or 8th review from Founders, and their beers are always pretty damn good, so definitely looking forward to this one. And as always I shall tell you a little bit about the brewery. So anyway, if you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews I've done from Founders before. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do subscribe to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city or state, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is a list of my American beers in there that you can check out if you want to, and as always please get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries you guys would like to see me review. Always interesting to hear from you guys, and your support for the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Founders Brewing Company then. So this brewery was originally founded in 1997 as the Canal Street Brewing Company in Grand Rapids, Michigan by Mike Stevens and David Engbers, and the two were really home brewing enthusiasts, and they'd actually only recently graduated from university at this point, but both of them had steady jobs. But they decided that they wanted to follow their passion, so they drew up a business plan, took out hefty loans and quit their stable jobs. But in the 1800s several breweries had actually operated in the Canal Street area of Grand Rapids, and this area apparently is now known as Monroe Avenue, and the original labels on the beers that were produced by this brewery at first were actually black and white photos of the original Canal Street breweries, and they had the word Founders on it. And then after that the brewery became known colloquially as Founders, and then they changed the name officially to Founders Brewing Company. But since the mid 2000s the brewery has really grown quite substantially, and they now produce about 340,000 barrels of beer per year, with the sales market constantly growing. As I said, this brewery are probably one of the better known American craft breweries, simply for the fact that they do export their stuff to quite a few different places. But they have a tap room which actually overlooks the brewing facilities, so that when you go there and actually visit Grand Rapids you can have a little look at how they actually brew the beer. And they also have an annual festival which is called Founders Fest in the street in front of the brewery, and they actually close the street down and they bring in local food vendors, they have live music and all of this sort of thing. So if you find yourself going to Grand Rapids or Michigan in general, do check out Founders. Really good brewery. Pretty much all the beers I've tried from these guys I have enjoyed, and many of them are very highly rated. They've got a whole host of different things. As I say, you can check out the brewery website in the description below and learn more about Founders if you want to. And what's another interesting point about this brewery is the fact that when they first started they really did struggle. They actually really had to change the way they were brewing their beers. They said they were kind of brewing quite well balanced beers, but they just really weren't so kind of punchy or anything like this, and they changed their brewing philosophy, and now they're probably one of the most well-known craft breweries in the world actually. So a brewery that if you haven't tried already you really do want to check out. So anyway, that's enough about the brewery just now. Let's actually get on to the tasting of this beer. So like I said to you, this one is a 9.5% Imperial Red IPA. It's hot with Chinook, Simcoe and Mosaic, but it didn't say anything on the website about the malt base on this one as far as I could see. That's one of the things about Founders actually, they don't really tell you very much about the actual hops and malts that they use in their beer. Some breweries do, some breweries don't. That's just something you have to get used to. But there's a little look at the artwork for you on this one. You can see it's almost like a little kind of hedgerow sort of thing, or sand grains. I'm not sure exactly what it is because the label isn't that big on it. It does look as if it's kind of maybe it's hop flowers actually, just on a kind of white background. They've maybe crushed up some hop flowers there and made that label. But there you can see the typical Founders Brewery bottle cap on this one. Doesn't say very much on the back at all, but just, you know, standard Founders presentation on this one. So let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Definitely looking forward to this one. So as you can see, a nice smoky opening there after you pop the bubble of course, and we'll get this guy out and into the glass. This looks really nice, and I'll tell you something, you can smell a really nice orangey and kind of caramel note from this beer. It's one thing I've always said in my reviews. I absolutely love red IPAs and things like this. When you get the Imperial Reds, they're amazing. One of the best ones I ever had, incidentally, was First Blood, which was from 8 Wire Brewery down in New Zealand with some of those New Zealand hops. That was lovely, but I always love the chance to try this style of beer from different places. But as you can see, this beer, it's actually poured a really kind of dark, almost black cherry colour actually. It's got a nice kind of ruby edge to it. I'm not sure how well you can see that with the light. I'll just bring the light down. There you can see around the edge here. You can see around the edge this nice kind of dark cherry colour. If I hold it right up into the light, it is actually a really nice kind of quite bright, almost cherry red colour. It's absolutely lovely looking beer, but I think just with the levels of light that we have in the room, you can't see that too well. But trust me on that, it's a nice kind of cherry colour, maybe actually very similar in colour and shade to the chair that's behind me here, but a really lovely looking beer. There's a solid finger of a frothy, I'd say it's a beige head, this one, a beige kind of creamy coloured head on this. There's a few big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, but quite a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of that head there. But it's an absolutely lovely looking beer, this one. If I put my fingers behind it, there is a degree of transparency, but I think just because of the colour of it, it doesn't come across all that well on the camera, but it looks very, very nice. So let's have a closer look at the aroma on this one then. Oh yeah, you know, this smells really, really good. So you've obviously with this one you've got a nice big boozy caramel malt base in here. Yeah, it's actually quite it's not quite tree colour molasses, it's definitely a sweeter caramel you're getting out of this one. There's a little bit of a kind of biscuity or maybe even honeycomb note coming out of this one, but that's quite subtle. That's just in the background, you're picking that up. It really is a big kind of dark toasted boozy caramel that's coming out of this beer. When you sugar it up a little bit more, you start to get some of the nice fruity notes. It's an orange character for me that's coming out of this one. The mosaic hop, of course, really gives you this kind of nice dark kind of tangerine note, but to me it just smells like a juicy orange. I always find tangerines just smell a little bit sharper, but that of course is the kind of the indicator, I guess, or the descriptor of the aromas that you'll get from the mosaic hop. The Simcoe one as well, the Chinook will give you a nice kind of big piney resin, but the Simcoe usually gives you a kind of passion fruity note, but in darker beers it can give you some of these sort of more red fruity esters actually. But you can smell a little bit of the lighter tropical note, and that will be the Simcoe coming out. Underneath there's a little bit of a kind of floral aromaticity. I'm getting a teeny wee bit of earthiness, and again that's another thing you can get from the mosaic as well. But really the aroma on this beer is definitely dominated by those big kind of juicy caramelly malts, the kind of boozy character, and the oranges are definitely just sitting on top of that. A little bit of red fruity ester, the kind of candied red fruit ester coming out of this one, and some floral aromaticity and pine resins underneath, but they're very subtle in comparison to the malts and the oranges, I would say. But yeah, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. This one really does smell nice, and as I said, I'm a big fan of Imperial Red IPAs, so yeah, if you get the chance to try this beer, definitely just enjoy the aroma. That's always half the experience with craft beers. But let's get stuck into this guy now then. So this one is the reDANKulous, a 9.5% ABV Imperial Red IPA from Founders Brewery over in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Slange. Oh yeah. That's a pretty damn good beer, that. You can feel the booziness in it as well. It is quite a boozy beer, this. At 9.5%, you know, that's something you should expect though. It actually really does taste quite different to what you're expecting from the aroma. I was expecting this one to be really quite a nice big sweet beer, but it comes across a lot more hoppy and bitter in the flavour. And it's really nicely done, you know. As I say, you wouldn't expect anything less from Founders, but it's got a really quite dark flavour to that one. As you would guess by the name, it's that big kind of dank pine resin floral aromaticity that's kind of dominating this beer. Yeah, that's really nice. So let's pay attention to the hoppy side of this beer first. As you'd expect, you've got a big pine resin character just kind of underpinning this beer, but to me it actually smooths out quite a little bit, and that's probably the influence of the the kind of the Simcoe and the Mosaic in this hop, because they tend to be, in my experience, a little bit more floral, and you can feel that just on top of the pine resins there. It's almost kind of suppressing it initially, and then as you move into the aftertaste, the pine resin flavours are starting to push their way out a little bit more. It's quite nice, and around the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit more kind of grassy, and I would say, yeah, lighter grassy, but still a little bit floral in my opinion. As always say, beer is subjective, right enough. You might perceive some of these flavours a little bit different than what I do, or differently than me I should say, but this is really nice. I mean, behind the front curve of the palate there, there's a good bit of that dark, a kind of dark grapefruity flavour. That'll be from the Chinook, of course. The pine resins and that grapefruity flavour are just kind of underpinning the beer. On top of that, you're getting the nice kind of darker tangerine flavours from the Mosaic hop in this beer. It really comes across very nicely. But I'll tell you right away, this beer is definitely for people who love the big pine resin and dark grapefruit beers. If you enjoy that kind of style of IPA, then this one is definitely going to hit that spot for you. And of course, it's interesting to try this one, obviously brewed with American hops. The New Zealand examples of this beer do tend to be a little bit more juicy, but this one obviously has been engineered so that it is darker and kind of pine resiny. So it's interesting in that regard as well to try. I think this maybe is the first Imperial Red I've tried with solely American hops in it. A lot of the ones I've tried have been New Zealand hops, incidentally. And the New Zealand hops, of course, are a little bit more juicy and less kind of resinous and floral and piney than the American hops generally. And it's just interesting to see the kind of contrast in the flavours you get in the beers. But this really is nice. I mean, as I say, definitely for fans of, as the name would suggest, it's for fans of these big, dank, floral, piney hops. And they've pulled it off really well in this one. I have to admit, I've really quite enjoyed this beer. The malt base on this one then, you've got a little bit, for me, of a kind of bready character just going right across the middle of your palate. And there's a bit of sweetness in the middle there. You've got some caramel, sort of toasted caramel in there. And I can feel a little bit of a kind of biscuity, grainy character coming out as well, which is really nice. And all the flavours in this beer just blend together really quite well. The malt base isn't anywhere near as sweet as you'll get from some Imperial Reds, right enough. The caramel is a lot more subtle than you'll get with some of the other beers of this style that you'll come across. Certainly a really nice beer, but as I say, flavour is definitely dominated by the big pine resins and that kind of grapefruity character that just underpins it. It really is lovely, and that lingers into the aftertaste. The fruity character does become a little bit sweeter as you move into the aftertaste too. I'm starting to get a little bit of a kind of red fruity ester. It kind of reminds me of the sort of flavour, the red kind of candied fruit flavour of these little heart-shaped sweets in Haribo Star Mix. It really reminds me of that. I'm not even sure if you get those in America actually, but for me that's kind of how they come across, this kind of red fruity ester that you get in a lot of candies and sweets. But definitely a really nice beer. So yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel of this one, I'd say this one is kind of mid to full bodied. It's got a big oily mouthfeel, this one. Carbonation is kind of standard. It's as you'd expect. It's not too kind of forthright on the carbonation. Big oily mouthfeel, and nice. The malt base on this one, I would say, as I said, it's kind of quite smooth. It's not got a lot of sweetness to it. The main focus in this beer, as you'd guess from the name, is the hops. It's got a big, bitter, resinous hop. But like I was saying, the Chinook qualities in this one, I think, are a little bit suppressed by the kind of the sort of Simcoe and the Mosaic ones. Just the fruity juiciness in that one, the sort of floral character just suppresses the big bitterness you would get from that a little bit, but it really kind of just underpins the beer quite subtly and quite nicely. But the bitterness lingers as you go into the aftertaste, and it even starts to grow a little bit, and you've got a little bit of that kind of juicy fruity character there as well. Grapefruit, like I said, and some kind of orange there, that kind of tangerine orange, and then a little bit of red fruity ester as you move further and further into the aftertaste. But again, it's a really, really quite nice beer. That's definitely for fans of these big, dark, pine resiny hop beers. Floral aromaticity as well makes it go right on point in that regard. But yeah, really nice beer once again from Founders Brewery. You wouldn't expect anything less from these guys. So yeah, thank you once again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. As I said, this beer is definitely for fans of big pine resinous, floral aromatic beers. It's definitely going to hit the spot for you in that regard. Do let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know some of the other Founders ones that I should have a go at as well, because this obviously is one of the rarer varieties that you're going to come across. But thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys again very, very soon. The reDANKulous from Founders Brewing Company over in Grand Rapids, Michigan in America. A really good quality beer. An Imperial Red IPA at 9.5%. It's landed just now.